Hi, I'm Dave Savoy, Vice President of Marketing at Internet Brands, and today I want to talk to you about an experience that I had with a company called 1-800-Accountant, where we saw some pretty awesome growth by synchronizing our sales and our marketing teams to point uniformly at our customers, serving their needs, and how we set it up, and what kind of results we saw, and how you can do the same. So the path to 30 million, which was the explosive growth that we saw, is kind of the big reveal up front. We saw a 30x revenue growth in under 2 years, which is pretty amazing, right? We went from 1 million to about 30 million in that time period. And so what I want to do today is show you how we did it, what was some of our background processes that we set up, how we connected with our customers, how we uniformly sort of set up our organization for success, and then, as I mentioned, kind of give you some tips, some tricks, some tactics, right, so that you can take this back to your organizations and do likewise. So quickly, performance overview. So we saw growth not just obviously in revenue, right, but in terms of sort of those leading indicators that showed sort of how we were getting there. So we saw a dramatic increase in our site traffic, our unique visits, our organic visits, as well as obviously paid. And then that translated to sales through a number of steps along that funnel, but it translated to an increase in weekly sales, which is kind of a hint moving forward in terms of how frequently we were really checking in on our performance. And it actually was more frequent than that. But weekly sales, dramatic increase, and then these things all sort of all together is how we saw our revenue increase as dramatically as we did during that period. Uh, Before diving into the setup and the systems and the processes and all these things, I want to start by level setting here and one of my favorite quotes, and that is that sales and marketing are continuously and increasingly integrated. Marketing needs to know more about sales, and sales needs to know more about marketing, and we all need to know more about our customers. Love it. It's absolutely true. But it's also one of these things that's pretty easy to say and pretty intuitive, but the devil's in the details. It's really hard to do. How do you actually take these two organizations, which ostensibly have different metrics, and then bring them together, and then sort of treat them as one organization, both of which are in service to your customers, which is then how you drive the revenue. And so that kind of, in a nutshell, is what I'm going to try to unpack today. So in terms of the agenda, the overview, the flow, right, of the deck here, I want to go through how we got ready, how we got set, and then the go phase, and then how you can grow, right? So that's sort of like the key takeaways, and how you can kind of do this back in your own organization. A little graphic here that I think is a little bit fun, where this discussion, right, of sales and marketing alignment can often be, from my experience, kind of like the elephant in the room, um, where it's pretty common to have disagreements or misalignments in terms of goals or communication processes, or even messages as you're delivering them to your clients, your prospects, between the two teams, right? And so addressing this is kind of like talking about the elephant in the room. So um, that's exactly what we're going to go through, and we're going to show you kind of how to do the same. So let's dive on in. Getting ready. So the first phase here is I'm going to talk about our experience, our market, what we did to then sort of set up the scenario for how we achieved the success we saw. So understanding our market. So with 1-800-Accountant, what we were doing was to connect with very small businesses, talking like 1 to 2 employees, about how they could set up their business to not overpay on their taxes, which is actually a pretty common thing for businesses to do. There's tons of incredibly complex rules and regulations that apply to businesses, and if you're a very small business, you just don't have time for that. So, looking at the market, like the landscape, right? We saw a dramatic increase in terms of new business starts around the pandemic. Lots of reasons for that, which we don't need to get into now. But the key takeaway here is that boom in terms of business starts has not slowed down. It's volatile, it's seasonal, but it's huge, and it's actually increasing. So tremendous opportunity, tremendous need in the marketplace, just right there. Um, Taking a look at rather high level, like what their needs are, their need is actually has nothing to do with what we are selling or what we were trying to provide. Their need is actually to grow their business, to manage their business, to talk to their customers. Um, they have sort of an implicit need of doing their taxes, of making sure they're in regulatory compliance, and that's where we came in. Is basically saying, hey, you need to do this, but you really don't need to do this. What you need to be doing is focusing on your customers. Let us handle this for you, so that you can get back to what matters most to you. Um, then again, kind of like easy to say, hard to do. What we actually did to deliver these messages was to understand, sort of at a micro level, where we had an ability to like connect like on a one-to-one basis, or at least as close to it as possible. So that is to say, uh, what are the laws around setting up a DBA in Texas for coffee shops, right? So we're looking at number of states, number of industries, and then types of businesses, types of needs, types of considerations, right? And then what we're talking is like thousands, tens of thousands of unique pieces of content that we're able to produce and then deliver to clients where they're at and when they need it. That's very specific, right, to their situation. So and then how we sort of automated that sequence in terms of, first we send this, then we send that, right? So it's a lot of setup, a lot of we're still getting ready, right? Is kind of pivoting a little bit of kind of what I said before in terms of that message and that specificity, uh, is taking that to introduce yourself to your pool of prospects, to your client base, right? Future client base, um, with messages that, hey, you have this need, we got you. Let's have a conversation, right? So you're making an introduction, you're starting to pivot them to some value add, right? For us, it was like a free consultation. Whereas if you were to try to have a consultation with a local CPA, they're going to charge you $200 for that per hour on average. So value that we're delivering just right off the bat. And then because we're segmenting and sub-segmenting really finely the prospects that we're going after and then tailoring the content likewise, we're also then able to um, pass that information along to our sales team so that they can have like a continuous conversation, which we'll get to in just a minute. Um, but again, it's kind of like understanding the need. Where can we sort of step in and fill that need and help out, and then just executing against it, and then using the systems, right, that we're going to talk about again in a slide or so, to activate that. So the process. Now we're in the get set mode, to like kind of put things together and then kind of get it out into market. Um, Things to consider, right? Making sure that you've got customer journey tracking, that you are going to be able to connect with clients at their point of need and then know where they're at in the funnel at really any given moment. That you've got a scoring process in place so that you know when people are ready for that next best action, that next step. And then having multiple ways for them to connect. For us, it was scheduling an appointment, that over a form fill, um, having an inbound call process with one of my favorite tools, which was a contact center integration, and then live chat, because it's just catching people right there with sort of an easy to engage kind of platform. And then just making sure that you have a closed loop methodology so that you can actually see where people are at, and actually where what's working and what isn't, right? So what's sort of resulting in revenue and then what's not, so that you can kind of feed back that data into your marketing processes and then get more of what you want, basically. Um, so that's kind of like the things to consider when you're setting up your systems. Um, then it's like, what are you going towards? What's your North Star? That's the goals setting section, where for us it was a work back schedule or a work back process, right? Where we're saying, okay, so if we want to get to 1,000 sales per week, what's that going to require in terms of leads, in terms of context, in terms of all the upper funnel kind of impressions uh, stats, right? So making sure that we've got the framework to measure these things, then it's like, okay, now what do we want to see at day 1, at day 30, at day 90, right? And then after 6 months, after a year. And then how do we sort of make sure that we're tracking towards the growth that we need to see as a business? And then setting those down, right, uniformly across sales and marketing. The feedback loop is, how do you check in? How do you know that things are working or that things are not working? That's where it's like, what is your appointment held ratio, appointment scheduled to held ratio? Are they qualified when they do show up? And then what about the quality of the conversations that you're having in chat via phone? And then kind of, are we making sure that all of this data is getting back into our marketing channels to effectively iterate and optimize our messages, our timing, our cadence, all these things. So still in the get set, right? And this is not an exhaustive list, but this is sort of like kind of like the tactics, right? So if all that we've talked about before is really like the setup, the understanding the opportunity, what are the considerations, how do we actually need to kind of lay things out on paper? These are like the tools or sort of the gears, right, that you put into place, right, to then start turning them to get the results that you need to see. Um, so 3 main areas here. So lead tracking and scoring, conversion options, and the reporting, as I mentioned before. So should be a lot of familiar names here. And I'll talk a little bit about how we got these things set up. So Google Analytics, Salesforce, and Marketo were kind of like the top of the funnel, and more of that sort of 360-ish sort of tools that we put into place. So that we basically have a clean view of our clients, again, kind of at whatever stage they're at in the process. Um, feeding into the lead tracking and like the customer journey, if you will, were those conversion options. So Chili Piper for our scheduling, that is basically where we allow a client, or a prospect rather, to schedule an appointment from the website directly with a sales representative. And that, because seconds are precious when you have somebody on your site, so that dramatically increased our sales over form fills, which is kind of one of the key takeaways that I'd like to deliver today, is that when somebody fills out a form on your site, right, they're basically saying, yep, I'm interested in having a conversation. If you have it such that sales is immediately getting that notification and calling back, um, you might catch them right away. You might be flagged as a spam call. So there's a lot of phone number management and sort of process optimization that is required there, and you might still not be catching them right when they have a second or two to kind of talk. They're just generally saying, yeah, I'm interested, but kind of non-committal. So by introducing the scheduler instead, we did see a reduction in submissions, but we saw a huge increase in quality and in completions, held appointments, that is. So that it's basically saying, if you really want to talk with us, we're here. Here's the value in doing so. Schedule your time. And so I want to say that we saw about like a 20, I think, percent drop in terms of submissions, but we saw a dramatic increase. It was like 50% to 100% increase in connections with those client or prospects rather that completed that process. So really cool stuff there. And Chili Piper was just really easy for us to kind of plug in, very, very user friendly, which is one of the key takeaways as well. Drift for chat, because we were able to set up playbooks, we were able to set up sequences that sort of drove somebody through a process and then get them in the hands of a human at the right point. And then leveraging some machine learning, some AI to have those conversations kind of in real time that basically said, okay, I'm ready to have a conversation with a human. here's here's the next step. And so that was actually quite easy to use as well. And then one of my favorites is we were using the NICE platform, NICE in Contact, which was contact center as a service, which we were able to integrate with Salesforce. So this was huge as well. So we did a lot of marketing, click to call marketing, people just engaging from the website saying, yep, let me talk to somebody right now. I need help with my taxes. They're due tomorrow. And what can I do? So those inbound calls, uh, before this solution, we ended up missing quite a bit, right? I want to say it was on the order of like 30–40% of calls that would come in were simply not getting picked up. And a lot of that had to do with call routing, yes, but then the representative that was actually on the receiving end of that call had an ability to ignore that call because they were getting ready for something else. They were, finishing up some other task or whatnot. This solution was different. It was a game changer. And so what this was where the inbound call would hit the system. Um, the software would say, okay, who is the next rep that's available, that's on the list, right? The sort of the qualified rep for the service that was being discussed, uh, and then make that connection. So with the sales rep logged into Salesforce, they would see sort of a 3, 2, 1 countdown, and then they were live. So there was no ability, no opportunity for that disconnect or for the rep to say, I'm just gonna send it to voicemail, or I'll follow up, or maybe it'll just get routed to somebody else. We eliminated that gap, that block. And so we saw dramatic, I mean, it went from what I say, like 60–70% contact rate to like 95%. So huge. It was tremendously needle moving for us. Then in terms of the closed loop reporting, um, was also really important about getting that feedback loop set back between our systems. Um, and then it was a lot of check-in, daily, weekly, iteration optimizing, um, which was all in service of building our DM team. So these are the key takeaways. Thank you for your time. I really hope that you found this interesting. Best of luck to you.